Welcome to TD's Web Business Banking Electronic Funds Transfer System Administrator Training. The purpose of this training is to help you get the most out of your Electronic Funds Transfer or EFT product. This webinar is designed to help system administrators like yourself submit EFT payments using TD's EFT service. Let's take a look at what will be covered throughout the course of this webinar. Getting started, system administration, how to make and authorize payments, payment progress activities, reporting, file transfer exception processing. If you are a returning user or want to view a particular section, you can find each section at the timecode displayed here on the screen. Let's begin. This training is interactive and hands-on. To get the most out of this webinar, please ensure you have the following on hand: your EFT customer guide, your authentication device, sample account information from some of your payees or payors that are ready for setup. And please note, if you are a prepaid customer of our service, you can only submit payment files during specific times. One last thing before we start. Please ensure you disable any pop-up blocker on your web browser, as this site requires pop-ups for functions you will use. Let's get started. The first step is login and authentication. To do this, log in to TD Web Business Banking or WBB by inputting your TD-assigned Connect ID and web password. Once you have input a successful password, you will be directed to a new page, which will prompt you to authenticate yourself as a user. Please input the one-time password generated by your authentication device. Now that you have logged in, it's time to learn how to set up the User's Rights Administrator payments. Administration. In this section, you will learn how to set up the appropriate user rights or permissions to successfully create and send a payment file. For the purpose of this training, we will focus on only changing your user rights as the system administrator to be able to successfully use the EFT service. It's important to always read the news feed, especially during the days the bank is closed. On the left navigation menu under Security, click on Add, Modify, Delete User. This will bring you to the Security page. This Security page is where you set up, modify, and delete users for all web business banking services. To modify your user rights, click on the Modify button next to your name. As a system administrator, you want to be able to complete all functions of the EFT service. Additional users may require customization or full access rights depending on your company's internal controls. Ensure that you set up at least 2 users with the ability to authorize payments in order to meet the dual authentication requirements. You also need access to file transfer service for the purpose of exception processing. Under the access rights, depending on your company's internal controls, select the appropriate radio button under for both EFT and file transfer. If you would like to follow along this demo, select full access for both EFT and file transfer. Click on Save and Continue. Some companies choose to have separate users complete different tasks. For example, one user who inputs payments and another who authorizes them. This would result in different access rights selected for each of their users. To ensure you have the ability to authorize your own payments, click the radio button next to Yes under Authorized Payments. Click on Save and Continue to get to the Review page to ensure your user rights are accurately set up. If they are correct, click Done. If you need to make further changes, click the orange back button, make any adjustments, and complete the Save and Continue review steps again. Now that we have covered administration, it is time to move on to learning how to use the Web EFT service. The Web EFT service. In this section, we will cover administration of payments, making payments using 3 different methods, authorizing EFT payments and sending them to the bank for processing, viewing your activity list, generating and viewing reports. Start by clicking on Electronic Funds Transfer in the top menu. You are brought to your activity list page by default. On this page, you can view payments that have been sent to the bank, the status of any payments currently in progress, or any returned payments. EFT administration will help you understand how to set up your payment templates, the various ways in which you can sort your payments, change your return account, should that be necessary in the future. We suggest that you set up payment templates for any payments you will make more than once. This will save you time when processing recurring or frequent payments. Note, you can also make one-time payments if required. We will begin with Originator Maintenance. On the left navigation menu under Administration, click on Originator Maintenance. This will take you to a page displaying your originator ID, company name, and account number. The originator ID is assigned by TD Bank and is used to identify you as an EFT customer. This page also shows which account is set up for your EFT payments to settle from. This is called your Contra account and is programmed by the bank. The return account automatically defaults to the same account as the Contra account. You can change this if you prefer to have your returned items directed elsewhere. The payment type is also programmed on the TD system to reflect the service you have. The status will either be test or production. In a test environment, you can experiment with different features and functions and practice making payments. If you are in a test environment, you can do this and nothing will be processed. In a production environment, payments are processed by the bank and sent to the payee or payor. Due date check is the amount of days prior to the payment date that you are required to send your payments. For more information about due date check, refer to the EFT Customer Guide. To make any changes in originator maintenance, click the Modify button. This page allows you to change your company name and company short name to something that your payment receivers will easily recognize. Keep in mind that either of these names may appear on the receiver's bank statement, depending on how their bank processes EFT payments. As such, it is best to ensure the names you use are as descriptive as possible. You can also amend the return account here if necessary. Please ensure the information displayed here is accurate and advise your account manager if anything is incorrect. Click Save to change any changes you make. Now we can create groups which allow you to organize your payment templates. Groups are optional. Only use this feature if it will help process transfers more efficiently. Groups are useful if, for example, you have payments for full-time payroll and then payments for part-time payroll. You can create 2 groups to organize your payment templates accordingly. When you set up your templates, you will be able to choose a group for them to go into. As such, it is recommended that you set up any groups before you create your payment templates. To create your groups, click on the Add Group button, enter your preferred group name, and click Save. You also have the option of setting rates for payments of the same amount. Note, setting up rates is not mandatory. Rates are typically used for recurring payments. For example, if your company is a daycare and you offer different childcare programs, you can set up a different rate for each program. Then when you create your payment template, you simply assign that rate based on the appropriate program. Rates are also useful if prices change. To capture this change, simply modify the rate. The change will be applied to every payment template affected by the specific rate, saving you the time of having to update each template individually. To create a rate, click Rates on the left navigation menu under Administration. Click Add Rate. Name your rate and input the set amount to be applied to all templates in this category. Click Save to save your rate. Now we will move on to adding your payment templates. On the left navigation menu under Administration, click on Template Maintenance to start setting up your payment templates. Payment templates are essentially the people or companies who you want to pay or collect money from that will compromise your online database of payments. Using the account information from your payees or payors that you have ready, click on Add Templates. Begin by selecting Payment Type. This is pre-selected by default based on the service you have with the bank. If you have both EFT credit and debit service, select credit if you are paying people, such as employees, or debit if you are collecting money, such as daycare fees. If you have set up rates and this person or company qualifies, assign the applicable rate using the drop-down menu. If this payment does not qualify for a rate, simply leave it as $0. Next, you must input a 3-digit CPA code, Payments Canada. If you do not know what CPA code best describes your payment type, click on the CPA codes link to bring up the list. Select the code that accurately reflects the type of payments being made. This is a requirement of the Payments Canada. Now, you need to enter the payee or payor information. The name and reference fields are mandatory in this section. The user fields are optional. This information is only for your reference and will be reported on your EFT payment template report, which we will discuss later in the training. As the reference number is mandatory, you will see that it is automatically populated in the system. You may use this number or change it to something that makes sense for the template. A good example would be an employee number. This number helps you to trace payments through the system. When entering account information, keep the following in mind. The bank field is always a 4-digit number. This contains a leading 0 plus the 3-digit bank ID. The transit field always consists of 5 digits. The account field is set at a maximum of 12 digits, as domestic accounts do not exceed 12 digits. Grouping is a good way to organize your payments. This is where you would select the group that this payment template belongs to. If you have a payment template that would fit into 2 separate groups, create 2 templates for that person or company and place one into one group and one into another. An example of when this might occur is when an employee claims expenses. They might be paid their salary separate from their expenses, and therefore 2 different types of payments would be made. Another optional method for grouping your payments is by using frequencies. An example of when to use this feature is if you make some payments weekly and others monthly. Assigning a frequency here allows you to organize these payments using a particular frequency. Once you have set up a payment, click Save and Continue to save this template in the database. You will see a message at the top of the screen that says the template has been successfully added. The template will remain on the system until you choose to delete it from the Template Maintenance tab. Now we will walk through how to manage your payment templates. Select Template Maintenance on the left navigation menu. Click on Find Templates and put it in your search criteria. You can click on Search Tips to find out more about the different ways of finding your payments. You can use this feature to find payment templates that need to be changed or deleted. Once you have finished putting in your search criteria, click on Search. On the screen under your search criteria, your search results will be displayed. Search results are displayed at the top of the screen. To view or modify details or delete a payment template, you can select one template at a time or multiple templates. Selecting multiple payments to modify will present one at a time. When you have finished working with a particular payment, click Save and Continue, and the next template will be displayed. This saves time by not having to enter search criteria multiple times. You can use the same method when deleting templates. When modifying a payment template, you can check the box Copy Template to Workspace to save yourself some payment steps later on. This automatically puts the payment into the file you're working with to send to the bank for processing. When you use this option, you must assign a due date. The due date is the day you want the payments to show up in the receiver's accounts. Note, debit payments cannot have a due date that is more than 34 days in the future. They should also be sent to the bank for processing at least 1 business day prior to the due date. Credit payments also cannot have a due date that is more than 34 days in the future. However, they must be sent to the bank for processing at least 2 business days prior to the due date. More information about due dates and lead times can be found in the EFT Customer Guide. Now that you have learned about payment administration, it's time to explore about making payments. Making payments. In the EFT administration section, you learned how to manage your company information, how to set up groups, rates, payment templates, and how to work with your database of payments. In this section, we will use that information to start creating payment files. There are 3 methods for making payments. These are making a payment using the import payment options, making a payment using the one-time payment option, making a payment using the copy payments option. Let's take a closer look at each payment method and how to use them. In this section, we'll cover how to make a payment using the import payments option using TD's EFT service. If your accounting software can generate an 80-byte file, you also have the option to import your payment by clicking the Import Payments button. Before you begin importing, double-check that you have disabled your web browser's pop-up blocker. Once you click on Import Payments, a pop-up window will appear, allowing you to browse for your file. Choose the file that you would like to import and click Send to Bank. If the file format is correct, the file will appear in the Make Payments workspace. The page that is displayed is called a workspace. This is where you will work on your payment file. Once the file has been imported to the workspace, it will be saved to your workspace until you are ready to submit your payments for processing. In this section, we'll cover how to make a payment using the one-time payment option using TD's EFT service. A payment file is defined as a batch of payment items or templates that are combined to create one file. The page that is displayed is called a workspace. This is where you will work on your payment file. Remember, anything you do on the workspace will not affect your templates. Any changes here will only affect the payment file. As mentioned previously, there's an option to add a one-time payment. If there's a one-time payment your company needs to make to a payee or payor, use this feature for quick entry and submission of the payment. The payment details are the same as the templates. However, they are not saved for future use. Once you have input the details for this payment, it will be saved to your workspace until you are ready to submit your payments for processing. While inputting a one-time payment, you will need to assign a due date. Remember, the due date is the day you want the payments to show up in the receiver's accounts. Click on the calendar link and select a date or type it in. To begin making payments, you must enter the criteria you want to use to select the payments you want to make. The company name dropdown allows you to select which originator ID these payments should be made from. This is important because an account number is associated with that ID, and you may have more than one originator ID set up depending on how your company likes to manage payments. Next, you will select your group from the drop-down list if you have chosen to use groups. Doing so will narrow your payment list to only those within that group. Then you select the frequency from the drop-down list if you're using frequencies. This will further narrow your payment list to those templates that are assigned to that specific frequency. For payment type, you should ensure you selected the correct type for the payments you're making. Credit is to send money. Debit is to collect money. Your originator ID is programmed for a specific payment type, so you may have a default pre-selected. If not, you will need to ensure you select the payment type that matches the payments you are making. Just as with a one-time payment, you must assign a due date. Remember what you just learned about due dates and apply that here as well. Click on Copy Payments to create a file that will show up on your workspace on the lower half of your page. If you need to make additional payments from different groups, or if you need to add additional one-time payments, you can do this here as well. You can also submit multiple payment files with different due dates. To do this, follow the same steps for making a payment and select different criteria or due date. This creates a separate payment file. Follow the same steps to copy payments to move them to your workspace. Last but not least, we'll cover how to make a payment using the Copy Payments option using TD's EFT service. To illustrate, here are the two templates we have set up. Notice the group and the frequency assigned to each. In the Copy Payments section of the workspace, we enter our search criteria. In this example, we have selected the FT payroll group with a frequency of every 2 weeks. This is a credit payment and has an assigned due date of June 27, 2019. Click on Copy Payments and notice the workspace updates to reflect the number of payments as one, even though we have two templates set up. The criteria selection narrowed down our templates to only those in the FT payroll group that were specified to be paid at a frequency of every 2 weeks. You can verify the payments in the file by clicking on the number of payments and total dollar amount hyperlink. This brings up a pre-transmission payment detail report, which you can use to verify the details prior to finalizing the file and sending payments to the bank. This is not a final acknowledgement of what has been transmitted and should not be considered a permanent record of your payment files. Please note that if there is a special payroll or a time when you need to pay a person or company out of the regular schedule, you can still pay this person regardless of how you've set up the payment group and/or frequency. These criteria are primarily a way of organizing your database to make it easier to manage. Once again, if you are in test, try different options to get a feel for the system. If you had copied other payments from different groups or have added a one-time payment to send to the bank, you will see two different payment files in your workspace as shown. If you want to send payments at the same time with different due dates, you will also see those as separate payment files. Payment files cannot be submitted with payments that do not have a dollar amount programmed. If you have set up your payment templates with a dollar amount of 0 and you are not making those payments at this time, you can easily clean up your files by selecting the file to clean up and clicking Delete $0 payments. To get your payment files ready to send to the bank for processing, you may have to manipulate the payments within those files. Whatever you input on the template can be changed here. Remember, whatever you change in your payment file here will not permanently change the template information. To manipulate a file, ensure the box next to the payment is checked and click on Find Payments. To manipulate all payments, use the wildcard symbol and click Search. Once the payments are displayed, select which ones you need to modify and click on Modify Details. The next page allows you to modify the amount. Complete the change and click on Save and Continue. After cleaning up your files and entering the proper payment amounts, you can return to your workspace by clicking on Make Payments again from the left navigation menu. You are now ready to submit your payments for authorization. Select the payment files by checking the box next to them and click on Submit. Once you have submitted your payments, you will see that your workspace is clear and there is a message at the top of the page that your payments have been successfully submitted for authorization. Submitting your payments for authorization is not the final step in sending the file to the bank for processing. You still have to authorize your files. From here, click Authorize in the left navigation menu. Remember that if you are a prepaid EFT customer, you will need to check the time before you proceed, as you can only submit files between the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time Monday to Friday, excluding statutory and regional holidays. The next step is to authorize your payment files and send them to the bank for processing. While we are working with one user for this training, we strongly recommend to have one user authorized to create the payment files in addition to providing first level of authentication and an additional user responsible for second level authentication. This adds a level of security that can help protect against fraud and ensure greater accuracy of the payment details. Click on the Total Amount hyperlink to print a pre-transmission payment detail report to check that the payments are correct. You can also generate a pre-transmission authorized decline summary report by selecting the radio button next to the files and clicking on Generate Summary Report. Or you can print a detailed report by doing the same and clicking on Generate Detailed Report and selecting the appropriate file type. It is strongly recommended that you at least view one of these reports to ensure your payments are correct. To authorize your payment files, select the radio button next to the file or the one at the top that says Authorize All to select all of the files at once. Click on Submit. You will be prompted to authenticate your request using your authentication device, the same one you logged in with. Enter the one-time password as displayed on the device along with your WBB password that you use to log into your web business banking service. If you find that there are some payments within your files that are incorrect, you can decline to authorize your payments. To do so, select the files to decline or select Decline All and click Submit. You'll also be asked to input your authentication information. When you decline your payments, they are moved to your activity list as payments in progress. The next step is to have your second user provide their authentication. Once completed, the file will be sent to the bank for processing. The second authenticator will need to log in to Web Business Banking, click on Electronic Funds Transfer, and select Authorize. The user can click on the Total Amount hyperlink to print a pre-transmission payment detail report to check that the payments are correct. They can also generate a pre-transmission authorized decline summary report by selecting the radio button next to the files and clicking on Generate Summary Report. Or they can print a detailed report by doing the same and clicking on Generate Detailed Report and selecting the appropriate file type. It is strongly recommended that they at least view one of these reports to ensure the payments are correct. To authorize the payment files, the user must select the radio button next to the file or the one at the top that says Authorize All to select all of the files at once. Click on Submit. The authenticator will be prompted to authenticate their request using their authentication device, the same one they logged in with. They will enter the one-time password as displayed on the device along with their WBB password that they use to log in to Web Business Banking Service. This is the last step in sending the payments to the bank for processing. The authenticator must ensure that everything is correct before clicking on Submit. The authorized results will display a summary of what has been sent. If the authenticator finds that there are some payments within the files that are incorrect, they can decline the payments. To do so, they select the files to decline or select Decline All and click Submit. They will also be asked to input their authentication information. When they decline the payments, they are moved to the activity list as payments in progress. Now it's time to cover what activity reports are used for. On the left navigation menu, click on Activity List. Here you can see where your EFT files are in the process. From the drop-down menu, select Payments in Progress and click OK. As you can see, 2 payment files are being worked on at this time. One file is pending authorization, and the other file is still on the workspace. On the activity list, you can move your files back to the workspace to change anything that might be incorrect. To do this, select the file you need to work on and click on the Move to Workspace button. On the left navigation menu, click on Make Payments again to go back to your workspace and work on the file as needed. Follow the previous steps to submitting your payments again. On the left navigation menu, click on Activity List again. Note that the default is the Payments Sent to Bank page. This page provides a summary of what you have sent to the bank. You'll notice that the File Status column is blank. We will discuss this on the following slide. Click on the dollar amount hyperlink to bring up your Payments Sent to Bank detail report. Important! You must print or save this report to keep track of the payments you send to the bank, as this will list all of the items that are included within your files. Please ensure you do this right away, as you will not be able to get this list once your Payments Sent to Bank page refreshes in about 30 days. At this time, you will notice that there is a blank space under the File Status field. This means that your file has not yet been processed by the bank. File processing on business days during business hours is usually every hour. At approximately 15 minutes past the top of the hour, you will see a status populated for your file. For example, if you sent your file between 11 and 12, your file status will not be updated until approximately 12:15. More information about this can be found in the EFT Customer Guide. You must return back to your activity list to view the status of your file promptly to ensure any errors are corrected as soon as possible. To view the status of your file promptly and ensure the payment details are accurate, use your activity list. Once the file status field is populated, there are 3 possible results you will receive. One is that the file has been rejected. This means that all payments contained within the file were rejected and nothing within that file has been processed. 2 is that the file has been accepted with errors. This indicates that the file was accepted but some payments were rejected and will not be processed. Or 3, you receive a status of accepted. This indicates that all payments contained within the file were accepted and will be processed. Click on the File Status hyperlink to bring up your EFT confirmation that will show the status, a settlement summary of payment count and amount totals, or any error or payment reject reasons. You will need to resubmit any payments that have been rejected once you have corrected the issue. On occasion, after your payments are processed by TD and sent to the other bank for processing, they cannot be completed. There can be a number of reasons for this. For example, if you send a debit file and the account does not have sufficient funds to pull from, this will cause the payment to be returned by the other bank. You will receive this returned payment into your account, which should prompt you to log in and check your returned items report. You should make a habit of checking your EFT service for returned items on a daily basis, as the report will be removed from the system after 35 days. You can view your returned items report from your activity list. On the left navigation menu, click on Activity List. In the Display drop-down menu, select Returned Payments and click OK. This displays a list of your returned items files. Select the radio button next to the returned payment summary you require. If you have more than one return on the same day, you will see the total amount of returns posted to your account. Here is where you can see which items were returned and what each dollar amount of those items are. Click on the Number of Returns and Total Amount hyperlink to view the details. For more information about returned items, refer to the EFT Customer Guide. The last thing you need to know about EFT Web Business Banking is how to create a payment template report. Click on My Reports under Reports on the left navigation menu. This report can be generated in the following output formats: PDF, a comma-separated CSV Excel file, or a tab-delimited Excel file. The report lists all of the payment templates you have saved in the database. This report is helpful for keeping track of your payments and for easy reference should you need to change information or delete the payment. And now we will explore file transfer reports and EFT exception forms. TD offers multiple reports for your EFT service. All reports are delivered electronically to your Web Business Banking File Transfer Service Receive file. Report to note that requires action once received is the Notice of Change Report, NOC. This report lists changes that need to be made to the bank branch account information in your transaction database. It is a Payments Canada requirement that all NOCs are acted upon. For additional details on the reports available, please refer to the EFT Customer Guide. At times, your company may also need to complete a task called EFT Exceptions Forms Processing. If you have noticed that something within the files is incorrect, after your files have been processed and acknowledged by the bank, you will need to submit an EFT exception form to recall or delete an item or file. Additional details will be provided shortly. Before you begin exception processing, double-check that you have disabled your web browser's pop-up blocker. Next, click File Transfer in the top menu. On the left navigation menu, click EFT Exception Forms. On the drop-down list, there are a number of forms to choose from, depending on what task you need to complete. The first 3 forms, called Countermand Request, are when you need to reverse or delete payments you have sent. You can reverse a single item, a range of items, or an entire file. For more information on the difference between these requests, refer to the EFT Customer Guide. Before completing a range delete or reversal countermand request, you must generate a file detail request. The file detail request provides you with a report listing all transactions in a file and the trace numbers that TD assigned to those items. You will require the tracing information from the file detail request to complete your range delete or reversal countermand requests. To do so, select File Detail Request from the drop-down menu. Click on Next and input the requested information on the next page. All fields are mandatory unless otherwise stated. Note that the file creation number should be 4 digits. Refer to the help link for additional details on how to fill out the forms. After entering the file information, click Next to generate the file details report. Once this report has been generated, you must download it. To download your file detail report, click Receive File. Select Electronic Funds Transfer as your service and click OK. Once the report has been generated, it will show up on this page for you to receive. Depending on how large the report is, it might take some time to generate. Click the radio button next to the report and click on the Receive button to view. If the report is very large, you can click on Receive Zipped to compress the report file for quicker download. Once you have received a report, it will appear in your file transfer activity list. If you need to view the report again after receiving it, click on Activity List on the left navigation menu. Select Electronic Funds Transfer on the Service drop-down and click OK. The list of available reports to download will be displayed. Now you are ready to complete your counterman requests. If you need to reverse or delete payments, select one of the counterman requests from the drop-down and click Next. If you are completing a single delete or reversal from within the same file, you can select how many you need to complete before clicking on Next. This will save you some time in inputting your originator and file details for each request. After clicking on the Next button, you will be asked to input the details of your file. For the range delete or reversal request, the tracing details can be found on the file detail report you generated. Once you have inputted all of the file details, click Next. You will have the opportunity to review your request for accuracy prior to submitting it. Click on Edit this information to make any required corrections. Once complete, click Submit. A pop-up window will confirm that your request is being processed. It is very important to double-check the status of your request after you have submitted it. To do this, go to Receive File again and receive your EFT reports. Reviewing this will confirm if your counterman request was successful. If you need to refer to this report after receiving it, this too will relocate to the activity list. Please note, reports may take up to 30 minutes to generate. When a payment you have made does not appear to have reached its destination, but has not been returned either, you may want to complete a trace to find out exactly where the payment is. To submit this request, click EFT Exception Forms on the left navigation menu. Select the Trace Request form from the drop-down menu. You can submit multiple trace requests, up to 10 at one time, for the same originator ID. Select the number of requests you'll be submitting and click Next. Input the payment details for each trace and click Submit. Check your reports again to determine what the status of your trace is. To do this, click on Receive File from the left navigation menu. Select Electronic Funds Transfer from the drop-down list and click OK. You will be contacted by the CMS support team within 10 days of the trace request. The details will be provided to you via fax or email. For more information on the timing and notification of traces, please refer to the EFT Customer Guide. When a pre-authorized debit or PAD is disputed by the payer is required to complete a reimbursement claim form prior to being reimbursed by their bank and the item being returned to your company through the clearing. If you receive a return with any of these return reason codes, you can request a copy of the reimbursement claim form. By completing this request, we will reach out to the returning financial institution on your behalf. They have 30 calendar days to provide the copy. You will be contacted by the CMS support team within 10 days of the request. The details will be provided to you via fax or email. More information on disputed payments can be found in the EFT Customer Guide. For additional information, please refer to the guides available on Web Business Banking Help. If you have any questions, please contact our cash management support team at 1-800-668-7328 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This concludes the webinar. Thank you for your time and attention. We hope this webinar was informative and you feel better equipped to manage your EFT payments.